What's up guys, I'm Dave Klein, and today we're going to talk about From Software's first franchise, Kingsfield, and the lore behind the games. This will be a multi-part series with each video covering one game. We start with Kingsfield, Japan, and the events that would lead to its start. Sival was a mighty god who lived in heaven above, and the world, Valicia, was Sival's garden. In order to maintain his world, Sival placed three gods, Vlad, Elfos, and Elwyn, to watch over. These gods created elves as their original creation, dwarves to make tools, gnomes, hobbits, and finally human. They then created the mountains, plains, and valleys, but soon, Elfos and Elwyn became bored and left the world, leaving only Vlad to watch over it. Without the help of the other gods, chaos erupted. Disdain broke between the elves and dwarves. Humans multiplied and pushed other creatures to remote places, and constant warfare embroiled Valicia. Finally, Vlad intervened by expending all of his power and creating two dragon demigods, Gyra and Seth. These dragons were to bring peace across the world. However, Vlad had unwittingly created a seed of evil, which instead controlled the dragons. Instead of bringing peace, the dragons fought one another for ultimate control over the world of Valicia. That seed of evil eventually culminated into a mighty shadow, and in the face of surmounting evil, a new race of dragon warriors appeared who sacrificed themselves to destroy this evil. Those who knew of the dragon warriors' great deeds built a shrine in the heart of the kingdom of Verdite to honor them. Its catacombs contained the bodies of the knights and became known as the Cemetery of the Dragon Knights. But as peace temporarily took hold of the land, their tales turned to legends, and their legends slowly forgotten. The Cemetery of the Dragon Knights became a simple graveyard, and the shrine left alone. The Reinhardt family ruled over the land of Verdite, a land named after the beautiful and rare magic crystals scattered across the land. The Cemetery of the Dragon Knights resided in this land of Verdite and came to be the royal cemetery of the Reinhardt family. The Reinhardt family was unique in that they possessed special magical abilities, which helped gain them the crown. In recent years, Randolph VIII of the Reinhardt line ruled briefly when he passed away from a sudden and devastating illness. In his place, Reinhardt II came to rule. Reinhardt II ruled for a time, enlisting a dark magician and black knight as his aides. As nobles, they had a royal guard and royal army. In time, Reinhardt II passed away and his son, Reinhardt III, who was especially gifted in the magical arts, came to rule. Reinhardt III was obsessed with magic, and more than any other king, emphasized the search for magical artifacts. As the royal cemetery was the Cemetery of Dragon Knights, this became the perfect spot to look for these, and Reinhardt III would regularly search the graveyard himself. Another relative to the Reinhardt family was Zoella Reinhardt. Zoella went on to marry the commander of the Royal Guard, Hauser Forrester, who was a renowned master swordsman. Together, Hauser Forrester and Zoella Reinhardt had a son, John Alfred Forrester, and the protagonist of Kingsfield, Japan. Commander Hauser Forrester was a magnificent swordsman, and as such trained the soldiers and people of Verdite. His two most notable pupils were his own son, John Alfred Forrester, and Alexander, the second prince of the neighboring kingdom Granatiki. It was during this time that Reinhardt III disappeared into the royal cemetery. With that came rumors of Reinhardt II being resurrected, as well as unstoppable monsters spawning from the graveyard. As was his duty, Commander Hauser Forrester left into the graveyard to stop the monsters and discover what went wrong. He brought with him the Forrester family heirloom, the Dragon Sword, and disappeared. After his father's disappearance, John Alfred Forrester, and protagonist of the first game, decided it was time he himself search after his father and discover what had happened. The royal cemetery itself was a maze of multiple floors going ever deeper, and each one spawning more horrendous monsters. On the first floor, a few survivors and grave robbers remained, each one repeating the same sentiment that Commander Hauser Forrester and his men had descended even deeper into the madness. As John ventured deeper down into the second floor, he came across Miria. "I have waited for you. In the deep darkness, the king becomes more and more powerful. Our strength will not hold for long. Please, come to us as soon as possible." And with that, Miria mysteriously vanished. On the third floor down, John came across his first surprise. Standing there before him was King Randolph VIII, elder brother to Reinhardt II, and the king who had supposedly died to an illness. "I am Randolph. Now I am sealed in this place, but I did not lose my magical power to my foolish younger brother. Even the soldiers are being raised and manipulated as monsters. This is not permissible." Randolph VIII had been poisoned and sealed in the graveyard by his own younger brother, Reinhardt II. And furthermore, Randolph VIII explained Reinhardt II was accompanied by his Black Knight, a formidable foe. With that knowledge, and the king teaching John fire magic, John traveled further down into the fourth floor, where he stumbled across a dying Watts Virgil, bodyguard to Hauser Forrester. "The commander, Black Knight, struck each other at the same time. Told me to take his sword. Think I can't make it. Left it at the grave." In his final moments, Hauser Forrester squared off against the great Black Knight, and both had defeated each other. John, saddened and enraged, found his father's tomb as well as the family heirloom, the dragon sword. He took the sword with him, emboldened to put a stop to everything. Then, he stumbled across another aide to King Reinhardt II lurking on the fourth floor, the Dark Magician. The Dark Magician could resurrect the dead, and as it turned out, was doing just this from within the graveyard, controlling the dead to do his bidding. As the Dark Magician revealed his true form, John angrily struck him down with the dragon sword, finally delving into the fifth floor, the deepest anyone had managed to go. Here, once again he stumbled across Miria, who was accompanied by a dragon, the demigod himself, Gyra. Miria was an aide to Gyra, who served the dragon line since ancient times and appeared to people in order to convey the dragon's will. With all of the power left in us, we remove all the seals and restore the light to the sword. Use both the power of magic and power of the sword. Please, you must not fail in closing the door of darkness. As it turned out, the evil spawning from a door of darkness spanned back to the same evil of ancient times, and the royal Reinhardt family had a dark secret. Its bloodline was cursed with the ancient evil of long ago. It was due to that ancient evil they possessed their magical powers, and, driven by that ancient evil, their ultimate goal was to rule all of Valencia. Gyra and Miria granted John their powers into his dragon sword in order to finally defeat this ancient evil. Their power manifested itself, turning the dragon sword into the fabled Moonlight Sword, and with it, John finally descended into the deepest floor of the royal cemetery. It was here John found that Reinhardt II had been both resurrected and turned to stone. It was his own son, Reinhardt III, who had transformed him. Reinhardt III opened the door of darkness and had mutated into a demon with the sole purpose to take over Valencia. But, combined with the power of the dragon and his Moonlight Sword, the magical bloodline of his mother, Zoella Reinhardt, the training from his father, Hauser Forrester, and the rage from his father's death, Reinhardt III couldn't stop John Alfred Forrester. John slew Reinhardt III and finally put an end to the ancient evil. Victorious, John emerged from the depths of the cavern. The people of the land hoisted him into the air. Joyous, the spread of evil and monsters had finally ended. They named John Alfred Forrester their king, and finally, peace had come. At least, so they thought. Alright guys, that wraps up this lore video on Kingsfield, Japan. I realize there's a lot of backstory in this particular episode, but I think it'll help make the future games easier to explain. Kingsfield, Japan itself is a short, straightforward, and fairly bare-bones game, and I personally find the future stories to be a little more interesting, especially as we get into Gyra and Seath. Additionally, I found a couple conflicting sources, both of which I believe are meant to be official. So, as that's the case, in those instances, I try to use the game itself as the primary reference. I hope you enjoyed the first installment of Kingsfield lore, and keep checking back for future installments as we go through the Verdite trilogy. Also, if you're a From Software fan, I recommend checking out my Dark Souls 1 and 2 lore series, and if you haven't, make sure to check out my new super shows. Alright, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.